Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider alongside Brandon Crossland and Joshua Birch. Josh, I have to ask you in particular how things are going because I know you guys have been in a massive heat wave the last couple of weeks over in the UK. How have you survived?
Barely. That was it as well. Last week it hit 41 degrees, and that's in the high 90s for you lot over there in America as well. Nearly in the hundreds, actually, I think, if I get my maths right. But it was unbearable, the heat as well. We were literally sat in front of big fans all day, constant ice creams, and not even a tan, but I am very burned and peeling as well, and it's completely dried my skin out. So I'm having to go to the doctors as I'll suffer of eczema. As well, so that's not great. But it got better over the weekend. Sunday, though, was absolutely horrible because the humidity was up. We had a bit of cloud, but there was very high humidity, very dry air. And being in the commentary box all day with headphones on as well, I took the leather ear cups off, and they were just soaked with sweat. I was stinking in my clothes as well, and I could feel the sweat running all the way down my back as well. So that wasn't nice. Had to get a bath very late last night as well. Woke up this morning without a sore throat, actually. So that healed overnight, which is good. But woke up with a bad neck. And today, thankfully, it's absolutely hammered it down. Torrential rain, which is good for the garden and good for us as well. And it's only a bit cold, but just as the English weather, it's going to be hot again tomorrow and hot again over the weekend. So it's a bit like Melbourne. It's the land of the four seasons.
I've heard that if you don't like the weather in England, just wait 5 minutes and then it will be something completely different. So it sounds like you've got some variety coming your way soon. And we are so glad to hear that you're doing all right. Brandon, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. And it's good to hear from both of you and back for another week of Encore.
Yes, well, we will see you a little bit later on in the show when we get into the race weekend at Pocono. Josh, we want to start with you, of course, and we'll get into the F2 action. Liam Lawson picked up another win in the sprint race, and Ayumu Iwasa of Japan took victory in the feature. And I also want to talk about a little bit Logan Sargeant. Tough weekend for him. He did grab pole in the feature, which netted him 2 points. He only came away with one more total, though. He finished 8th in the sprint race, so not the best weekend for him in the championship. Points leader Felipe Drugovich crossed the line in 4th in both races, but was promoted to 3rd in the sprint race following a 5-second penalty for Theo Porcher. And it's Drugovich, Porcher, and Sargeant, the top 3 in the points as they run right now. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on Lawson picking up another win, as well as Iwasa picking up his first career F2 victory?
Absolutely brilliant for Liam Lawson as well. He desperately needed that. He hadn't won since a couple of sprint races, I think, right at the start of the year, actually. So it's his second win of the year, second sprint win. He has yet to win a feature over the course of the longer distance, but he'll get there in time. I thought it was, you mentioned about Theo Porcher's 5-second time penalty. That was very unfair, in my opinion, but he bounced back on the Sunday with a great second place as well. Going through as well, Iwasa, first ever victory in Formula 2, as you said, that was very much needed. Japan's a bit lackluster at the moment with talent in Europe as well. They do great in Super Formula, as we see, their local series. But over here in Formula 2, we've got Sato there as well and Iwasa. And I think Iwasa is definitely up there. And I would say he's better than Yuki Tsunoda. If Honda was still in Formula 1, Iwasa would have been in Toro Rosso this year. 110% as well. He's a very quick driver, very aggressive driver, and as well, and he's got a good form that maybe he can become one of the most successful Japanese drivers in European formulas, and hopefully so, because he's really, really good. And I think it was a happy weekend all round in Formula 2. Paul Ricard usually delivers boring races, but if this is the last weekend we see in Paul Ricard, which is not on the calendar for next season, it's delivered us with a great W Series, 2 great Formula 2 races, and a very good Formula 1 race as well. So I've left very happy from that circuit. So very happy Formula 2 paddock, which is quite unusual and very, very good.
When it comes to the championship, just a quick follow-up here, Josh, before we get into the Indy Lights recap. Looks like Drugovich is starting to pull away a little bit. There might be a battle for second between Porcher and obviously the American fans are keeping their eye on Logan Sargeant and what he can do. But do you think Drugovich is at the point now where he has one hand on the championship?
Yeah, and I think he's had one hand of the championships in Spain. That double victory in the sprint and the feature, it's not that easy to do in a Formula 2 spec as well with the regulation changes. So it was crucial for him to get pole in the Friday, get through on the Sunday, and then looked into sort of dominant strategy in the sprint race on the Saturday. So he's definitely got one hand of the title. He's too far ahead in the championship now. I think he's something like 40 odd points or so with 4 weekends remaining. No, 5 weekends remaining, isn't it? Because there's, let's see, Hungary, then into the triple header with Belgium, Netherlands, and Italy. Then we have a 3-month break until Abu Dhabi. So he could easily wrap the title up by the end of Monza. And we just go into Abu Dhabi with a very simple finale. But Djokovic has had a bit of an off form in the past couple of races. He's lost a few points at Silverstone. He gained them back here in Porticard. So I think Sargeant, again, who had won 2 feature races back to back after what happened in Formula 2 in Austria, Sargeant was in course for a very good race, but got caught up. And as you said, only came away with 2 points plus 1 more for finishing 8th in the sprint as well. And it's not really going to be anybody else's game. I would put money on Djokovic taking the title at the end of Monza, 100% in my opinion.
Now, I've got to say, I'm not really a fan of that scheduling, that being that massive of a gap between the penultimate race and the last race in Abu Dhabi. I think the calendar is right at the length that it needs to be, but I'd maybe like to see it a little bit more spread out towards the end of the year so that there's not whatever it is, 2.5. I think you might have even said close to 3 months between the penultimate race and the final round at Abu Dhabi. So, just to me, it seems like if we're in a heated championship battle, there would be so much excitement, so much attention on it going down the final race. And then there would be 2 months for that to die off. And then, we'd have to get ourselves excited again when it comes to Abu Dhabi. So I don't know, but that long of a break is necessarily something that's good for F2, but maybe that's something that they can look into in the coming years. Now, shifting gears over to the Indy Lights series, rare opportunity for Indy Lights to race on an oval now that the Freedom 100 seems to be on hiatus. But Hunter McElroy, doesn't matter if it's a road course or an oval, he took his second consecutive Indy Lights victory this season, winning at Iowa Speedway following a clash between Linus Lundqvist and Matthew Brabham. Now, Lundqvist and Brabham both passed McElroy on a restart with 25 laps to go, but the two came together with 5 laps remaining when Lundqvist cut Brabham off from the high line coming off of turn 2, which damaged Brabham's front wing. Brabham limped home to cross the line in 4th, with Lundqvist as the apparent winner, but Lundqvist was penalized by race control for avoidable contact, sending him down to 4th, essentially making sure he finished behind Brabham in the running order. This promoted McElroy to the win, Christian Rasmussen to 2nd, and Brabham back onto the podium in 3rd. So, Josh, was the decision to demote Lundqvist to the first spot behind Brabham the correct decision?
I don't think it was, to be fair. And that's me sort of taking the unusual stance of don't penalise the driver for that error. I see what the commentator said as well in the time as well about how he sort of came up and kept moving up and closer towards the barrier as well on the back straight away. Yes, you could say that was avoidable, but I never once saw Lundgaard look in the mirror in the direction of Brabham. Not once did he do that as well. Brabham was always on the high line as well, so the spotters would have been telling Lundgaard that as well. So up at the top for Lundqvist as well. And I don't see it. Brabham was on the high line sweeping through, but I can't see why Lundqvist as well. He wouldn't have seen him. Lundqvist was taking a normal line, which was taking the middle line through turn 2, exit up towards the top half of turn 3, and it's the natural flow of an oval. Brabham was the one out of position. In my opinion, it was Brabham who should have backed out, shouldn't have been there in the first place. He wasn't even a wheel alongside until the exit when Lundqvist had come up and was in his normal racing line. So I think that was a very, very harsh penalty. I don't agree with it whatsoever. I'm amazed Brabham continued and the wing didn't get thrown up as well. But that's for Lundqvist as well. That's a very unfortunate penalty. He should have been the winner for that one as well. I don't agree with race control's decision there at all, because I think that's giving a penalty for penalty's sake. That was a racing incident, and we saw that a lot in Formula 1 this weekend. So it seems to be race control making a bit of funny decisions all weekend long across multiple series.
Well, either way, I don't think it's going to make a difference when it comes to the championship, because we're talking about Djokovic. Lundqvist has had one hand on the championship for multiple weeks now, and I think McElroy might be making it a little bit interesting if he hadn't had a bad first couple of rounds to start the season off. Of course, coming off of a couple of wins here, he's closed the gap a little bit, but it's still a massive gap up to Lundqvist. Just what is it, 4 rounds and 5 races remaining because we have one doubleheader. I don't see that there's going to be enough time, especially with the short fields. If you've only got 13 cars, there's only so many positions you can drop down the way the points work. So you're guaranteed a minimum number of points that's higher if you would have a lower car count. And I think even if Lundqvist, who I don't believe has finished outside the top 5, he's been running very, very strong all season long. More podiums than not. I really don't see, he can afford to have a couple of bad races and he'll still be in good position for the championship. So it's been a fantastic season for him. He seems to be the champion-elect already, but it would take quite a bit of intervention for McElroy to be able to close the gap at this point, I believe.
Yeah, and it comes to something where the only interesting series where the title fight is really close at the moment is IndyCar. Because of what happened over the weekend as well. It's close to championship. Newgarden could have taken the title but crashed as well. Then we had that strange incident where Ericsson sort of drifted back in the second race at Iowa, so he's lost points. Power's moved up as well. So it looks like across Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3, the closest fight we've got for a championship is IndyCar. And we didn't say that 3 weeks ago when Ericsson was leading the title by about 53 points. So it just shows how quick things can change. And I'm liking that IndyCar is actually getting some popularity. Even over here in Europe, it's getting like, oh, this is the title battle to watch because everything else is too spread out.
Well, we're going to bring Brandon back in here as we get ready to transition to the stock car NASCAR ARCA weekend at Pocono. But Josh, before we let you go, I want to give you an opportunity, especially since you weren't on the wrap-up show yesterday, to give us your one shining moment. I know you maybe wanted to discuss the Formula 1 race a little bit as well. So across everything you saw this weekend, what was the one thing that stood out to you?
Okay, well, the one thing that I've chosen as well, and it's actually quite fitting on the Encore show as well, my one shining moment was in the Formula 2 race at the end. Carling, a French team, won the race in the feature with Iwasa, and the Carling mechanics were on the front of the grid at the end of the race, and they were singing the French national anthem in front of the main grandstand. And Theo Pourchaire finished second in that race. Who drives for ART, came up, stood arm in arm with the Carling mechanics and sang the French national anthem. And it was just a happy podium and a happy team and a happy grandstand. So that really stood out to me as like a fantastic, pure sporting moment as well. Just quickly wrapping up my thoughts on the Formula 1 race as well. That Charles Leclerc scream, I think, will live in me forever. I could feel that right here in the heart as well. And if he's thrown away 78 points now as well, Verstappen's thrown away 50. So if this keeps happening, I think it's pretty much game over. Leclerc now needs to win 4 races running with Verstappen 5th or worst for the championship to really swing in his way. It's unlikely that's going to happen. But to give you a little bit of hope here, remember the fact that after Hungary, going into the second half of the season in Belgium onwards, Ferrari and Red Bull are not allowed to use their flexi floors. They must conform with the FIA regulations of set floor margins of how much they can flex. So that is going to dramatically change their cars. Could swing either one's way. So there's still hope for the title there. In IndyCar, that's getting exciting, as we touched on as well. We've got Indianapolis this Saturday as well, 12 p.m. Eastern over there in America. That's going to be interesting to see who's going to take the title lead leaving there. I was very impressed with the 2 races at Iowa. Race 1 I thought was better than race 2 as well. Newgarden's crash was very alarming, and then him going to hospital was even more alarming as well. I think you've got news on that, Ben, after I finish here. What else did we cover this weekend? W Series getting boring as ever. Well done, Jamie Chadwick. 5 races on the bounce, 7 wins in a row. Get her in Formula 2 now, or the entire series is in trouble. And overall, I think it was another great weekend. But to use a common phrase that is common with us youth now, hashtag pray for me, because this weekend there is 7 motorsport series I'm commentating on, and there's a total of 10 on that we all cover here at the Grid Network. It's one busy weekend coming up, but thankfully the last one where everything's on at the same time.
We're hearing rumors here in the States about Chadwick and Indy Lights as well, but whatever it is, certainly wishing a little bit more for her than another season of W Series, because I think both for her and the W Series at this point, it would not be good for either of them if she's back there in 2023, because obviously with the dominance that she's showing forth, you'd like to see more women in the W Series enjoy some success and make a name for themselves as they try to move up the ladder as well. But Josh, thank you so much for coming on. And before we let you go, we do want to update everybody on Joseph Newgarden. Of course, he fainted and hit his head after the race at Iowa yesterday. He's awake and alert. The brain scans came back negative, so that's a positive sign, absolutely. And he is recovering. Santino Ferrucci will be on standby for Team Penske this weekend. A bit of an interesting choice there, although I suppose it makes sense with NASCAR. Xfinity being there this weekend as well in a rare IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader. But he obviously has IndyCar experience. He will be on standby should Newgarden not be medically cleared to race. And of course, especially with a head injury or anything like that, we saw it this weekend in NASCAR with Kurt Busch as well. We want to take those very, very seriously. So certainly wishing all of our best thoughts and prayers to Joseph Newgarden for his recovery, and hopefully we will see him back behind the wheel this weekend. So Josh, thank you so much again, and best of luck this weekend. I know you've got a lot of races to cover, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, prep has already started today. That's how busy this weekend is, that I didn't even get a day off. I've been making graphics and doing voiceovers and even updating my computer to Windows 11 so it can handle it, because it was lagging a bit over the weekend. So we're taking no chances here. And just to update everyone as well, I will be missing the Formula 2 sprint race as I'll be commentating on the IndyCar. So Megan will be commentating on the F2 sprint while I do IndyCar as well. Megan's commentating on Formula 1 qualifying while I do Formula E race 2. I'll be back for the F2 feature race on Sunday morning, I'll be on the Hungarian Grand Prix F1 race, but for Formula E race 2, Megan will be on the commentary there as well. And then I think we're all back together for some show later on in the day. But that's today, so I won't see the sprint race for Formula 2. That'll be Megan's job. I'll be back for the feature on Sunday.
We look forward to hearing all of that, and thanks again for coming on the Encore show tonight.
Absolutely. Have fun, guys. See you later.
Thank you. All right, well, Brandon, let's get started with Pocono, and I guess we should start with the ARCA race. It was Taylor Gray picking up another win for his David Gilliland Racing team. Nick Sanchez came home second. Brandon Jones was third as we pull the results up for you here. Brandon Jones will not sweep his 5 starts this season. I'm sure Josh is very happy that an Xfinity Series regular did not take the ARCA win. But for the 4th time this season, at least the 4th time this season, if I can think back to the races that we've covered here in depth on Encore, the race was called off early. This time it was due to darkness, and it was a race that was given a 6:30 p.m. start time here on the East Coast. I know it's summertime, but still seems relatively late, especially at a track that doesn't have lights. There was also a red flag for multi-car accident, which led to the race being called after just 64 of 80 scheduled laps. So, Brandon, have ARCA and NASCAR been kind of putting themselves in a box here with scheduling this season, given how many races have had to be called short?
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I didn't know if it was an intentional box they were setting themselves in, but after a repeated pattern that you and I have been noticing, especially with this last weekend, calling it for darkness, they really have, starting at 6:30 and where you can't have lights, it's kind of not responsible if you want to get your ARCA race in. So, yeah, I think there's definitely something going on here as far as scheduling beforehand for the entire season. And if they want to give the ARCA Menards series the respect it deserves, they're going to have to figure out something to do here as far as scheduling at an earlier time. I come from the camp that says noon always in Infinity, but I know that's not always possible with scheduling for everybody else. But maybe they can reach some sort of deal here where they don't have to. I mean, maybe they want to cut things off short. Maybe they like doing that. I don't think they would, even from a business standpoint. Cutting things off short, that's just it's manipulative of races, and it doesn't look good at all, especially when we have to talk about it here.
Well, we remember talking about when Chase Cabre suggested Cup races should be half as long as they are now, and the firestorm that created on social media. I would think, if anything, especially for ARCA races, which are already significantly shorter than Cup and even Xfinity races are, if anything, you would want a little bit more racing if we could get it. I understand that you want to conserve tires and fuel for the teams, especially with the economy right now, and try to save the team's money. But, I feel like you're kind of asking for trouble there. And again, I know there was weather in the area. And, obviously the storm's coming through Pocono being a big track. It takes a while to dry if you don't have the assistance from the sun. So, I'm not sure exactly what the timing would have been had the start time been pushed up a little bit. They might have had to start it, at 6 or 6:30 anyway. But, when the scheduling calls for that, and that's the start time, you're basically asking for something to happen because these drivers in ARCA are typically on the less experienced side. A lot of them are younger, and Pocono in particular is one of the rare 2.5 mile tracks that allows 17-year-olds to compete. So that's why Taylor Gray was even allowed in the Pocono race this weekend, and obviously went on to win the race. But it's very frustrating to me, especially as somebody who follows ARCA very closely, that this is the 4th time now that I can think of. I remember Talladega was cut off due to the broadcast window. Portland, I think probably could have kept going a little bit more in hindsight. I know the weather was getting bad, but then it eased up right as they called it, and it was eased up for an hour, and there's still plenty of daylight left. And then the very next weekend at Sonoma, the West Series got shortened again because there was a window where the Cup Series had to go out for practice. So it just seems to me that they're really in a box now with multiple different scenarios here, and they really need to take a look at the start times going forward in 2023, or maybe even the rest of this season, because I got to say, I think people, within the sport as well, put effort into their strategy based on what the advertised distance of the race is going to be. And this is another reason why I'm not a fan of overtime in motorsports, is because, if drivers are calculating their fuel or calculating their strategies, and then you arbitrarily extend the race because you want to give the fans an entertaining green flag finish, that messes with people's strategies. And similarly, maybe somebody was saving their stuff until the last 10 laps to go ahead and pounce and be ready for the final run there. And then that's taken away from them because we've got to get the Cup cars out for practice, or we've got to go off the air so that the next series can come on, or, we started too late, we're running into darkness issues. It's just very frustrating to me as a fan. I'm sure it's frustrating to some of the drivers, and I think it's something ARCA should look at.
Yeah, it definitely takes away from the racing product itself when we have to keep addressing these issues that really, from an administrative standpoint, should be pretty block and tackle, easy things to address and not have problems like this in the first place.
Yeah, so hopefully ARCA can take a look at this in NASCAR as well, I guess I should say, since, obviously there's a lot of weekends where their series are at the same track as ARCA, and they own ARCA now, and they have for a few years. So I think we can't avoid throwing them in here as well. This is a decision that they have influence on and they can make as well. And, they need to coordinate better so that this can be avoided. Now, one little nugget I want to point out before we go into the truck series, very exciting stuff. If you follow NASCAR on social media, you probably know who Dylan Smith, better known as Mamba Smith, is. And he will be making his ARCA debut this weekend at IRP in a paint scheme that pays tribute to AJ Allmendinger's Champ Car paint scheme, or livery, I guess I should say in that terminology, from when he won the Champ Car race at Portland 16 years ago. So very exciting for him, and we wish him all the best as he gets the opportunity of a lifetime to run an ARCA race this weekend.
Yeah, I just saw on Facebook he just had an interview with JRN. If you know about yes. Judson, sure. He got to interview Mamba about his upcoming debut.
Yeah, very exciting, and we'll be looking forward to that this weekend, and we'll cover that on next weekend's show here on Grid Live Encore. Now, moving over to the truck race, it was Chandler Smith who picked up the win in the truck series, holding off Ryan Preece in a late race charge to take the win there, and Zane Smith was the one who clinched the regular season title, and this is the final race. It's kind of crazy that we're here at the back 3rd of July talking about this, but this was the cutoff race before the playoffs begin. So the playoff grid is set now. Zane and Chandler, no relation there between the two Smiths, are first and second, and they will be joined by Ben Rhodes, John Hunter Nemechek, Stuart Friesen, Christian Eckes, Ty Majeski, Carson Hocevar, Grant Enfinger, and the 3-time series champion Matt Crafton lurking in the 10th and final spot after just edging out Derek Kraus to get into the playoffs. But Brandon, I want to ask you something here. Like I said, it's only July. We have just 7 races remaining. Is this too early to be starting with Truck Series playoffs?
I don't really have a problem with it exactly, because that's just kind of been the way that the Truck Series operates. It just has a smaller schedule than the secondary series, and then the secondary series has a smaller schedule than the Cup Series. And if you look at how they operate in February. They got one race, March 3 races, April 2. And then the bulk of their season for the Truck Series comes in May, June, and July, like getting the summer Friday night shootout kind of atmosphere in the places they go. But I mean, what we have now is the round of 10 at Richmond in August, the round of 10 in Kansas in September, followed by round of 8 Bristol, then round of 8 Talladega, Homestead in October, and then you just have the championship 4 race at Phoenix. So it really spreads it out, gives them a lot of leg room, a lot of time to breathe. And I really don't have much of a problem with it. It is a great question, though. I do think it's easier on their budget to not have as big of a schedule, and just by default, this is where the playoffs end up lying in the schedule. And whenever you have the framework of a smaller amount of races during your season, so I think it's just it looks funny to us whenever we say that they're starting so early. And I've questioned this before in previous seasons, but it turns out to be this is just a natural. I think it's just a natural flow of where you have to put it if you're going to have all the rounds of the playoffs.
Well, people need no explanation from me how I feel about the playoffs in general. I think that's pretty clear at this point. But I have to say, if we're going to have playoffs, it does seem kind of out of place to me. And I think, like you were saying, I have no problem with the Truck Series schedule as it is right now in terms of a number of races. I think you could probably go back up to 25 if you wanted to add a couple here or there. But again, I know, especially in the current economy, the way it is, it's not a bad thing that they're trying to save teams money. Maybe 22 or 23 is the sweet spot. But I do kind of wish, and we were just talking about this with Josh as well, there's, a very long break between the penultimate F2 round and the season finale there. And in a similar way, I feel like, obviously you're not going to have a 10 race playoff in a 23 race schedule because that takes up almost half the season. So I understand from a Truck Series perspective why there's 1 fewer round and 3 fewer races in their playoffs as there is in the Cup Series. But I just feel like maybe if they could work the schedule out a little bit to the point where this race takes place in the middle of August, it might make more sense that NASCAR might be able to market it better because, Cup Series, we're still talking about, the possibility that we could get 16 winners with the 14 we have right now with how many races we have left. Now, the playoffs are coming. They're going to be here before we know it, but there still are quite a few races before we get there and quite a few opportunities. Whereas in the Truck Series, we're talking about the playoffs right now. The playoff field is set, and, we haven't even run the final race in July for the Truck Series yet. And, it just seems like it's a little bit out of place to me. So again, from a scheduling perspective, maybe Formula 2 can look at that, try to spread things out, not make the fans wait so long for their final race. Similarly, I think maybe the Truck Series should consider spreading it out a little bit more. But I do agree with your point, though, that in terms of the number of races, I think the Truck Series is in a pretty good spot right now.
Well, I see what you're saying now. Like, and if they want to be able to market their playoff format, or if the Truck Series wants to be able to market their playoffs easier, they need to line up more with the higher divisions as far as TV time, so they can kind of keep it a little bit more in line. So maybe make it in such a way where it will shift over to August when we start the round of 10.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not saying that it needs to be all 3 series are at the same track, the same weekend, and this is where the playoffs begin, just as the playoffs all end at Phoenix in November. But what I am saying is maybe trucks should start a week before, at most, the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series if they're aligned, or maybe the Xfinity Series will be a week later or 2 weeks later because they have a schedule that's more similar in length to the Cup Series, but they also only have 7 races in their playoffs because they have 1 fewer round. Maybe the Xfinity Series should go to 4 rounds. I don't know if NASCAR, would be open to doing that. They seem open to tweaking the format every few years. They allowed 10 drivers into the Truck Series playoff field a couple of years ago. That started going from 8 to 6 to 4. Now it's 10 to 8 to 4. So, they seem open to tweaking it every so often. But I think it would probably be better from a marketing perspective if they were closer together, because right now it seems like the Truck Series playoffs maybe start a little bit too early. The Xfinity Series playoffs maybe start a little bit too late relative to the Cup Series. If NASCAR really wanted to market the playoffs and advertise the excitement of them, and again, I'm speaking neutrally here because people know I'm not a fan of the playoffs generally speaking, but if NASCAR wanted to try to market them to people that are interested in the playoffs, it might make more sense to have them closer together. Maybe that's something to consider going forward.
That makes sense.
Well, speaking of the Xfinity Series, let's move on there. The final race this weekend at Pocono that we usually cover here on Encore. We will talk a little bit about Cup in just a moment, and you'll see why when we get there. But Noah Gragson outdueled Ty Gibbs in an epic battle to take his third win of the season. And despite the history between the two and each of their reputations for being aggressive drivers, it was a relatively clean battle to the end throughout the closing laps. So, Brandon, were you surprised Gragson and Gibbs were able to both bring their cars home in one piece as they fought each other for the win?
I was. Pocono is a very wide place there, the second longest front straight on the calendar. And they're able to go, up to 7 wide theoretically, but you definitely don't want to do that. But Gragson and Gibbs, they put on a really great show. And again, I just want to echo what I said on the New Hampshire weekend. The Xfinity Series is just really continuing to impress as far as good, clean racing that is both satisfying to the race fan and also to the happy-go-lucky TV viewer. And I think they're doing a really good job as far as the product they're putting on the track with these cars. And Gragson and Gibbs, it was really surprising they were able to race that hard against each other. And Gragson coming out with the win with no damage and no crazy spin outs where we have to go into overtime and have some more manipulated madness.
Yeah, well, if you ask anybody who the two most aggressive drivers in Xfinity are right now that could theoretically win and fight for this championship, I think Noah Gragson and Ty Gibbs are probably at the top of most people's list. And the fact that they have a prior history with each other, even going back earlier this season, and we're fighting for the win in the closing laps that hard for that long, I thought it was going to be inevitable that eventually one of them would slide up or get into the other, and we'd see one of them go spinning or be forced up into the wall or something like that. But all credit to them for keeping it clean and putting on, like you said, Brandon, an amazing show for the fans. The Xfinity Series really seems to rarely disappoint, and Pocono was no exception to that. But we also know Pocono can lead to some hard hits, and second week in a row here, we saw Jeb Burton come home 33rd after having some heavy contact, and this time he got the worst of it, ended up flipping over on the front straightaway. Fortunately, everybody involved was okay, but Brandon, what was your reaction to the accident? And are you surprised Burton kind of got launched into the air the way he did, getting pinched down on the main straight?
Yeah, it was rather odd. I had to look at it a few times. It's kind of wild, but I think they noted a couple of things. One, I think the pit road wall there had been added recently because of Casey Kane's ordeal in 2016 or 17 or so. It's hard to those years are kind of blurred to me, but coming into the pit lane inside the pit road and almost hitting some crew members after crashing into the infield. So that maybe if that never happened, that wall wouldn't have been there. And he's still. We're glad that wall is there. He would have went into the inside pit road. And another thing, it seems to me that it wasn't really as much the first turn that got him. He would have been okay. He was kind of maneuvering his way there on the inside wall. And I don't know if it was Jade Buford in the 48 or if it was Tyler Reddick on a one-off. I'm not sure.
Stenhouse this weekend, wasn't it?
Stenhouse. Okay,
yeah.
I know that's been a revolving door of drivers. Okay, so Stenhouse this week. If it wasn't for Stenhouse, his push into Jeb going into the wall, I think somehow, I wasn't there, and I'm also not an engineer or a scientist, but I think somehow it was the force of Stenhouse and the force of the safer barrier having some sort of bouncy effect to Burton's car that allowed him to have that flip. And this might be one of the first times that the safer barrier may have caused a car to look worse and then had it not been there. That's just a theory.
It was kind of weird. It's always weird seeing, it reminded me kind of an open wheel crash, because it looked like the car went over the tire, kind of ripped the sheet metal away and got launched like you might see an open wheel car going over the back of somebody's tire there. But, like we said, very fortunate that Jeb Burton was okay. And, I think the safety team maybe improved a little bit upon their response. I know that's been a criticism of them the last few weeks here with some of these hard hits that we've seen really all throughout NASCAR's top three divisions. But, like we said, the most important thing is that Burton is okay. And hopefully he can bounce back from this because it's been a rough couple of weeks for him.
I don't know, man. Pocono just has a way of doing weird things.
It does. Yeah. It really does. You think of all the massive accidents that we've seen there. You want to bring up Casey Kane as well. I remember 2010 when Allmendinger put a bad block on him, and Kane went into the grass and came spinning across the track. And, that was a very frightening accident there as well. But, again, fortunately, with the safety of these cars these days, everybody, most of the time, is able to walk away, and we don't take that for granted. But, again, fortunate that Jeb Burton was all right there.
Yeah, my mind goes to Bubba Wallace in turn 1 with his brakes going out and just hoping for the best. I was actually watching that on shift working at Walmart. So Walmart, hope you're not watching, but that's when I saw that crash in 2018. I think it was horrible.
Yeah, 18 or 19, one of those. I know it was in the 43, and it was before COVID. But yeah, another very good example. There's very rarely a small hit at Pocono unless you're right up against the wall and you lose a tire running the high line going into the corner or something like that. It's very prone to produce hard hits, and fortunately, most of the drivers have been okay in the recent ones that we've seen on the NASCAR side of things. I know Kurt Busch had a minor injury we'll get to in just a moment here, but I want to bring up one piece of news that broke earlier today in the Xfinity Series. Brad Perez will be making his Xfinity debut, or attempting his Xfinity debut this weekend with MBM. He's competed at COTA and Sonoma this season in the Truck Series, and so we'll be keeping an eye on him as well, and how he does in what is going to be another great opportunity for him to compete. Now, of course, we rarely talk Cup on this show unless there's a delay and we do like a combo show or something like that, but I do want to talk a little bit about what happened in the Cup race on Sunday, because Ty Gibbs, driver that we do talk about a lot of times on this show, he got a surprise call up to the Cup Series from 23XI Racing after Kurt Busch was not medically cleared to compete in yesterday's Cup race. Busch was experiencing concussion-like symptoms after a practice crash, which forced 23XI to find a replacement, and the team elected to give Gibbs the opportunity to make his Cup Series debut a bit earlier than most were expecting. Gibbs finished 18th on track, but was promoted to 16th following the disqualifications of Kyle Busch and, ironically, his team owner for the day, Denny Hamlin. So, Brandon, I want to give you the opportunity as well to react, since you weren't on the wrap-up show yesterday, to the JGR disqualification news. But how would you assess Ty Gibbs' performance in his Cup debut, given all the sudden circumstances of it?
It was pretty smooth. And I'll be honest, as much as we have kind of put Ty Gibbs in the dirt sometimes this year on this show, I got excited when I saw that Ty Gibbs was going to be filling in Kurt Busch's spot. I'm a sucker for Xfinity regulars getting their Cup debut in a really high profile ride, and he looked fresh and clean in that McDonald's fire suit. It suits him well, and I like the backup car. The idea that they couldn't put all the original parts back on it, so you kind of have this black alternate on the McDonald's scheme. So it is, maybe that'll be a diecast one day. That'll be like the signature Ty Gibbs Cup debut. That, remember that way back when. But he did really well given the circumstances, and they over the radio they made it clear that he was not going to be fighting for position until the final stage. It was just survival mode until then, because he had never been in a next-gen car, and he did a really fantastic job, as to be expected. He's clearly shown that he's a natural talent, and I hope that he can piece the respect along with it, and hopefully this will be a sign of future things for Ty Gibbs. And my guess is he'll probably be in the 19 somewhere here soon.
Yeah, well, I think he took one of those opportunities the day before with Gragson, like we were talking about, a very clean battle there. Mm-hmm. And good to see a little bit more maturity from him as the season's gone on. Hopefully we continue to see that, and hopefully he gets a Cup opportunity full-time, if not next year, certainly by 2024, because I think what he has shown in the Xfinity Series is that he has the potential to be at least generational talent. And I know sometimes a lot of pressure is put on these young drivers, and we hype them up a little bit too much, and then they can't perform in the Cup Series. So we want to avoid doing that and give Ty the time that he needs to continue to develop. But, jumping right in an Xfinity car, winning his first race, going out and surviving at Pocono on such short notice in a fire suit that was probably a little bit too big for him, and Denny Hamlin's race boots as well, to come home with a top 20 is a very solid effort. And I think Ty Gibbs has nothing to be ashamed of. He did an admirable job. And, Brandon, on that note, it would not surprise me if Lionel offered that diecast. I know a lot of people were excited when Ty's quote-unquote unsponsored car came out. I know Ty has a lot of partners, but he ran a plain black scheme in the Xfinity Series last year that got made into a diecast because he won with that car. Maybe Lionel could do like a first starts special for him. I'm sure there'd probably be a market for that. And especially maybe if he goes on to have a very successful Cup Series career, maybe they put it in a NASCAR Classics line 15 to 20 years down the road and get it made that way. But who knows?
Yeah, I just had a very stupid thought, and it probably won't mean anything to you, but maybe for familiarity's sake, in his Xfinity car, he's got a black hood with an M on it. In the Cup Series, he had a black hood with an M, but it's McDonald's. Okay, I'm done with the stupid thought.
Yeah, a lot of Gibbs and Toyota sponsors with Monster, M&M's, and I know they're leaving, but McDonald's as well. A lot of M's on these Toyotas these days. That is interesting to think about.
With the original car, it wouldn't be a black a hood. So with the backup, maybe it was more comfortable for him to have familiar settings.
Yeah. Speaking of M&M's, I guess we should just talk briefly. It would have been very fitting, I think, if Kyle Busch had been the one to inherit that win. Of course, he got DQ'd as well. The weekend where M&M's was the presenting sponsor at Pocono, and then of course, they have a good run. They just miss out on putting the M&M's car in M&M's victory lane, and then they get sent to a last place finish. Denny Hamlin got disqualified, and he still avoided Brock Beard's last place article this weekend because his teammate finished second and got disqualified as well. So
there you go.
Not a great weekend for Gibbs in that regard.
No, and that was very strange with his daughter coming up and being emotional. I really missed all that storyline. I'm not sure what that was about, but got the ride with the car and all that, and it was kind of strange. And of course, online's going to do what online's going to do. They're going to make fun of it because he got disqualified, and it's sad what people will do to things.
Yeah, well, I think even Chase Elliott was being interviewed this morning, and he said, he's not going to celebrate this win because in his mind he crossed the line third, and he even said Hamlin can keep a trophy if he wants.
Keep the trophy.
How he feels about that. So I know fans were certainly longing for this rule for so many years, and now it's interesting to see some of them. When it happens to their favorite driver, they go, wait a minute, maybe it's not such a good thing after all. Maybe we should go back to the encumbered wins and the asterisks and things like that. But
are you not entertained?
Yeah,
this is what you wanted.
Yeah, the post race fireworks, people were recording their post race podcasts and everything. We were very fortunate on the wrap up show yesterday. We did Formula One and IndyCar first, so the news actually broke right before we were supposed to go into the NASCAR stuff, and we got very lucky in that regard. There, it would have been quite awkward trying to circle back.
My favorite post was from former guy I got to work with for a little bit, Matt Weaver. He was like, I was 600 words into a feature. And I think a lot of people were. Yeah, probably most of the paddock were already into their features when that broke.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for joining us again this evening. I want to ask you before we sign off, what is your one shining moment from this weekend?
I'm glad that Joseph Newgarden is okay. I'm glad that Kurt Busch is okay. I'm glad that NASCAR is taking their concussion protocol seriously. And it's just good to see these injuries throughout the weekend, that things are looking up, and that there's nothing serious that occurred with these two occurrences. Those are my one shining moments.
And if you'll forgive me, I have two as well. I want to give a call to Sage Karam. I know it was quite an emotional weekend for him, taking his bike out to turn one at Pocono and visiting the spot again where Justin Wilson lost his life 7 years ago in the IndyCar Series race there. And Sage has had to deal with a lot of negativity online, people saying that it's his fault, which is absolutely terrible and absolutely not right. But I'm glad he was able to get through that and run this Xfinity race this weekend to come home with a solid 20th place finish for Tommy Joe Martin's team and Alpha Prime Racing. He has nothing to be ashamed of, and he should be commended for putting that behind him and racing through turn one this weekend. And there was a fantastic article in The Athletic by Jeff Gluck a couple of months ago. I highly encourage everybody who's got a subscription to go read it. And if you don't have a subscription to The Athletic, go subscribe, because there's some great people there doing some great work. You don't just get the motorsports content, you get content from all sports. And Jeff is one of the best in the business. But he put a fantastic piece together on Sage and the journey that he's been through. It's great to see him put that behind him and race through Pocono this weekend. I also want to give a call to Todd Bodine. Todd Bodine finally reached 800 starts this weekend. Had an issue early on in the race, and that forced him to retire a little bit sooner than he would have anticipated. But it was fun seeing him back out again this season, and he had a couple of decent runs in that Halmar Friesen Racing 62 truck as well. So good to see him back, and certainly wish him the best in his retirement. I'm sure we'll be seeing him on Fox Sports and Race Hub for a little bit while longer, at least. But Todd is somebody who is a legend of the Truck Series, a 2-time champion, and great to see him back for a few races this season to get to 800 National Series starts.
The Onion.
Yes, great to see Todd back again a little bit this season. And we are going to wrap it up now on yet another episode of Grid Live Encore. If you liked what you saw tonight, consider joining our Patreon. And thank you, as always, to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have already done so, and help keep Grid Network on the air throughout 2022. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee for me, Brandon, or any of your favorite on-air talents, including Josh as well. And thanks, as always, to Edward, Amber, and Zachary, who have already done that. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, all our social media platforms. And lastly, thank you to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDNET in the link below and on your screen down below there as well will give you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, on Wednesday, Kobe will be hosting Grid Tonight. As always, Joe Samniego and Daniel Zeri will have the Women in Motorsports program for you on Thursday. And stay tuned, as always, for more Grid Live coverage throughout the weekend as well, and Joshua's channel for his commentary with all the racing that we have going on this coming weekend. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Looking forward to the Music City GP weekend. I won't be there, but it's nice to have that in town and to have the extra roads that we can't drive on. But that's the nature of it. And just looking forward to the rest of the season. And I know it's going to be busy for me with high school football and everything, but I want to be here when I can. So I appreciate all that we've been able to do so far.
It's been a great year so far, and I'm looking forward to finishing strong. So with that in mind, for Josh, for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you soon.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on Public.com.